Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. Now, these guys are another relatively new addition to their local beer scene, and they've built up a very, very good reputation for themselves, both within their home state and across the US, and of course that means that other people have heard of them now as well. But from what I've seen, these guys are quite diverse in their output, and by that I mean they do quite a few different styles, which is always a good sign when it comes to newer breweries, at least in my opinion. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is part of a style family that these guys are supposed to do very, very well, a style family that is quite popular at the moment too, and I've heard very, very good things about this particular beer, and it seemed like a very nice place to start actually. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Always nice to introduce new American breweries to you here on Rampant Lion Reviews as well. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to the US like I said. We are going to go to the northeastern part of the country, we're going to the state of New York and a little area called the Hudson Valley, and to be specific, a town called Warwick. So that means that we're going to have a look at my first beer from Drowned Lands Brewery. This one is called Terra Citra. It comes in at 9.4% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this is one of maybe 8 or so beers that arrived here in Hong Kong from Drowned Lands Brewery. I think it was Hops Express that brought these in here, and this is the one that really kind of caught my eye because, you know, in terms of pricing of imported craft beer in Hong Kong, there is a bit of a kind of bang for your buck sort of thing. You'll pay about the same for a single IPA, or just a little bit more for like a triple or double IPA as you would for a single, so I tend to go for the heavier ones in that case, because, you know, they're just a bit bigger in flavour as well, that's the other thing. But yeah, this was the heaviest of the IPAs I think that was brought in, and there was another, yeah, there was about 7 or so other IPAs and 2 Imperial Stouts, so you will see me review one of those Imperial Stouts at a later date. But this is a single hop Citra New England Triple IPA, this one, so again I think that makes for a very good beer to get a feel for this brewery. So let's crack on with it then and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from the Drowned Lands Brewery. Very first time I'm reviewing one of their beers on the channel, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the American playlist, along with a number of other things that's constantly being added to, because we get a good supply of American beers here in Hong Kong. And do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. So yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Drowned Lands Brewery. So the Drowned Lands Brewery are based in Warwick in New York State, which is to the northwest of New York City in the Hudson Valley region, and there seems to be quite a few breweries popping up there over the last few years. But the company was founded back in 2020 by Mike Cry, who has a background in accountancy and audit. Now, he's originally from Hawthorne over in New Jersey, where he still lives apparently, but he studied business in Michigan, which we know is a very good beer state, before he returned home. And then he worked in the field. He returned home and worked in the field of accountancy for quite a number of years. But he was also an avid home brewer, and apparently he was encouraged by his father-in-law to take this hobby and go professional with it. So he also owns Pine Island Brewing, which can be found in the nearby town of Pine Island, which is northwest of Warwick, and this company was founded back in 2015, and the brewery is based in an old fire station, and it operates a small 2.5 US barrel system, which is about 400 litres for those of us who use the metric system. But one of the beers that was created at this brewery was a saison using local candy onions, which was called Drowned Lands Saison, and it's said that that is the beer, or that name if you like, is one of the things that kind of inspired the branding and stuff of the new brewery. So the Drowned Lands Brewery itself is based in the former Mid-Orange prison facility, which has been gradually converted into a business park since 2014. But the brewery building is over 100 years old, and it once belonged to the State School for Boys before it served as the administration building for this prison complex. But apparently $2.7 million was invested in getting the brewery off the ground, and it started off with a 1,500 US barrel per year capacity, which is around 240,000 litres. But the name of the brewery is taken from the local fertile grounds, which are apparently the result of an ancient glacial lake and the floods of the local Wallkill River. But for this reason, they're quite focused on using local ingredients as much as possible, and they call this the philosophy of terroir, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, probably not. But they're also known particularly for fermenting a number of their beers in wooden fodders as opposed to stainless steel. They do have some stainless steel tanks as well, I hasten to add, but this takes a little bit longer, but they say it gives their beer much more in terms of unique flavours and things like that, and that is of course one of the things that this brewery has really made a name for itself with. But as of March 2025, these guys have produced 225 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I said, they've built up a very, very good reputation for themselves, and that's probably how the guys at Hop Express came across this brewery and imported it here to Hong Kong. So yeah, like I say, these guys have got a very, very good reputation, so definitely cool to be able to find their beers over here in Asia. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about the Drowned Lands Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open up. I have to say, I do like it. It kind of seems like a very neat hand-drawn sort of thing. There was one of my friends at school actually had a very similar kind of writing style to this. I'm trying to remember who it was. Maybe John Hickson, I can't remember. But yeah, one of my friends at school actually had a very similar kind of handwriting style to what's on the can here, and that was another thing that kind of caught my eye with this, with the artwork on here. But yeah, I think it's really quite nice. This one, of course, is single hop Citra. Like I said, it uses American two-row malts, flaked wheat, and I think it was flaked oats as well, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, really nice artwork on this one. A lot of the beers have a very similar style of artwork to this, but it's different colour combinations basically. But you can see plain silver top on the can there. This one is 473 millilitres, which is one American pint, 9.4% as we said. But yeah, this should be nice. Citra is a hop we know very, very well, of course. 14% alpha acid in a New England IPA, which I believe this one is. It's going to give you more of a kind of big juicy mango, a little bit of peach, and then the sort of lemony limey type characters. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. The Terra Citra from Drowned Lands Brewery in New York State, the Hudson Valley region, Warwick to be precise. Let's do this. Been looking forward to this one since I bought it actually, so let's do it. That looks very nice. I think that's enough to take a look at for the moment. Let me just line it up so that my OCD is happy. So yeah, anyway, we've got maybe about 3/4 of the beer out and into the glass at the moment. So if I shine the light through this, it's actually a lovely, very bright, rich yellow colour. This one, I would describe it as mango juice. I always like comparing the New England IPA's appearance to different fruit juices. But yeah, you can see that we've got over a finger of frothy, I would say slightly cream coloured head on this one, medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, some fluffier ones the further up that you go. But yeah, it looks like a very, very nice beer, this one. Lovely kind of bright yellow mango juice colour. So yeah, remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel agent that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about those latter two variables when it comes to the IPA family, if we can call it that. But yeah, it looks very nice. This one, you can see the head is starting to kind of fade away a little bit, and I'm sure that'll go away to being a kind of thin foamy layer. I can feel my nose starting to run. I'm hoping that doesn't affect my take on the aroma too much. But in terms of the level of haze in this one, it's not the soupiest and gloopiest of New Englands that I've come across, right enough, but it does have a kind of solid level of haze to it, this one. So the level of haze in these beers depends on oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use, and that can vary from brewery to brewery, beer to beer, and so on. But yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. The head is, pretty much now just a kind of thin foamy layer. So yeah, nothing particularly surprising about this beer appearance-wise when you consider what style it is. One other thing I would say is that at 9.4% ABV, it's kind of on the very border of what you could consider a triple. For me, usually I would say a triple IPA is 10%. But that's kind of by the by, if you like. So I think we said everything about the appearance. Let's go on then and have a wee look at the aroma before my sneezing comes in. I can feel that I'm going to start sneezing a lot in a wee bit. So let's do this. Aroma time. Ooh, now that's interesting. Very kind of smooth, bready New England IPA this. But it's got everything you'd expect. Lovely, soft, juicy, fruity characters. Good little bit of green component to it, but a very, very smooth, more bready backbone, this one. So as I've said on the channel many a time, when it comes to New England IPAs, there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of things. So yeah, you've got the kind of farmhousey, yeasty type character and the rye, lean and grainy side of things. Those 2 elements are a bit more common in the New England brewed New England IPAs, because of course this style started out as the farmhouse IPA basically. But then you've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things too. And the style has evolved to focus more on those 4 variables as it's moved elsewhere, if you like. So yeah, for me this one actually seems as if it's quite barley malt leaning and a good little bit of yeasty character in there. There are of course oats and things and wheat in this one, of course, but this one does seem as if it's a little bit more barley malt leaning, but you do get those elements of wheat and oat as well. So yeah, if we sugar it up, you do get a bit more of the wheaty side out of this one. So yeah, that's quite interesting. But the thing to remember too is that European and North American oats and wheat, for example, are quite different. European oats tend to be a little bit more creamy. American oats, I find, are a little bit more kind of porridgey. European wheat's a little bit more kind of bitey and dry, whereas American wheat is a bit smoother. So I'm getting the feeling the smoothness that's coming out of this one is partially due to the wheat. So it's a lot of barley malt white bread and wheat white bread that I'm getting out of this one. So yeah, let's just break down that aroma for you more in depth then. So the backbone of this beer, fresh white bready bread crust, that's for sure. You've got little elements of like cracker and wood, as you very, very often get. Maybe a slight little hint of a kind of slight, like a wholemeal brown bread. But yeah, lots of fluffy white bread. Lots of fluffy white bread in there. You can smell at the back of the nose, you do get a little bit of that wheaty bitiness out of this one. But overall, the wheaty side of the beer is quite smooth, but you just smell that slightly more dense, white bready character coming out of this one. And you can smell a little touch of the oats coming out of the beer. And the thing with oats is, oats can usually be a good indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is. It's a little bit harder, I think, with the American beers, at least for me, because generally speaking, oats tend to be a bit more creamy the younger the beer is, and they tend to be a little bit drier the older the beers. I know this one is quite fresh. This beer, I'm probably drinking this maybe about 5 or 6 weeks old, which, you know, in the American context isn't so fresh, if you like, but in the export context it is. And I've had this beer in the fridge maybe for 2 weeks or so, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we got this one within a few weeks of it being, within about 2 weeks of it being canned, if I'm not mistaken. It arrived in Hong Kong. But yeah, so the aroma of this one, the malty side of this is really nice. There's a little bit of like Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch sort of thing coming out of this one. It does have a little bit of that sweet element to it, and there's a wee bit of like biscuit, McVitie's digestive, or cookie, as you Americans would say. But yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about the malty side of it, to be honest. I'm curious to see how that's going to translate into the flavour. But yeah, the aroma of the yeasty side of things at the back of the nose, yeah, it's mainly white bread, little touch of brown bread in there, and a wee bit of cracker as well. So yeah, the way that everything pieces together in this one, I think, is really, really nice. So it's a thumbs up from me. Yeah, I think we can move on to the hoppy side of things then. So green component in this one, it makes me wonder. Oh, spilled a wee bit on myself there. The green component in this one makes me wonder whether there's been a little bit of cryo or something like that used in here, because it's very, very smooth. Now remember, with IPAs there are 3 types of hoppings that you can do. You can do early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deeper, danker green component. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. Gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it gives you a very bright green component. Dry hopping takes place after the wort boil is complete and gives you very similar properties to late addition hopping. So New England IPAs tend to rely on late and dry hopping, and West Coast IPAs use all 3. So that's why New Englands are softer and more juicy. The West Coast IPAs are a bit more oily and kind of pungent in that sense. So yeah, the green component of this one is kind of what you'd expect. There's a little tiny hint of earthiness in there. Yeah, tiny little hint of earthiness in there. Maybe a very slight herbally note. But yeah, lovely kind of floral aromaticity, quite oily actually at the same time. As I say, I suspect that's because of cryo or something like that, because it is just very, very smooth, and there's a nice little bit of kind of brighter grassiness in there as well. So yeah, the green component of this one is very, very smooth, and I think it goes together really, really nicely. So yeah, lovely smooth green component in this one. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we can really say about that. On the fruity side of things then, if you know Citra, it's doing exactly what you'd expect. You've got a lovely little bit of kind of peach in the top of the nose. Yes, a lovely little bit of peach in the top of the nose. Oily, juicy mango underneath. There's wee hints of like apricot and pineapple and stuff like that. And then yeah, there's a little hint of that kind of lemony limey type character to this one as well. So yeah, the way that all of that kind of pieces together, I think, is really, really nice. So that gets a big thumbs up from me as well. And really, really nice feeling beer, this one. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we really need to say about the aroma of this one. All I would say is take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of your beers before you get stuck into them. But yeah, I think it is about time for us to try this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Terra Citra, a 9.4% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from the Drownlands Brewery in Warwick, Hudson Valley, New York State, over in the northeastern US. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh, that's very nice. Really smooth, really soft, and very juicy. New England IPA, this one. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, I can see why this brewery. Oh, and look at the kind of haze. That's made that even more. That has made that quite soupy and gloopy now. That's the only thing with some of these import beers, because there's good cold chain these days, so you do tend to get a wee bit of sediment. This one, maybe I need to get a slightly bigger glass for these reviews, especially for the American pint cans. This one can take a 440, but not the American 473. Yeah, you can see that's got distinctively more hazy there. So let's have another wee look at that. Yeah, this one's very nice. As I say, very soft, very juicy New England IPA, this one, but it's actually quite light in its body and quite drinkable. It's definitely not the thickest, but very, very smooth, very silky kind of smooth actually, but a very, very good beer. So thumbs up to the guys at Drowned for this. They've done a solid job here. And it's interesting too, it has kind of what I would have expected, but it is a little bit more kind of grainy and has a bit of dryness into the aftertaste. So yeah, good stuff. So let's break this down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So yeah, middle third of your palate then, backbone of the beer. Fresh white bready bread crust, as you would expect. A little bit further forward on that, a little bit further forward on that middle third of your palate, you can feel there's a little bit of woodiness in there. Then above the bread crust, you have a little touch of, you've got a little touch of like Jacob's cream cracker in there. And into the aftertaste, more of that bread crusty and more of that crackery character starts to push its way out. So yeah, interesting. On top of that, you have a little bit of on top of that, you've got a little bit more of a kind of, there's like a sort of brown bready, wholemeal brown bready layer. It has a little touch of sweetness to it, but again, at the same time, it's a little bit grainy. But then, yeah, above that, you've got quite a dense and smooth white bready character coming out of this one, which I do really like actually. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is again very, very nice. So the brown bread, the white bread, above that you get the more dense wheaty white bread out of this one. And the wheat in this one is quite interesting for me because it does have a little bit of that North American smoothness to it, but there's definitely a wee touch of bite coming out of the wheaty side of this beer too. So yeah, I really do like that in this one. So for me, the wheaty, you get that dense wheaty brown bready layer that comes out of this one is really, really nice. So the wheaty layer is in there, and yeah, it's kind of smoother further forward on that middle third of the palate, but a little bit bitier further back. And then yeah, above that you start to get the oats. So down the middle line of your tongue you can feel a more intense, creamy, sort of oaty character coming out of this one. And then as you move out toward the edges of that middle third of your palate, you can feel the oats just get that little touch kind of drier almost. So that's quite interesting. And in the dead centre of the palate, you can feel that little circle there where you get the booziness coming out of the beer. So the booziness for me, the booziness in the beer for me, this one actually does show its booziness quite a little bit. I would say more potentially than some of the other New Englands that I've had that are heavier than this, which is interesting. But yeah, in the dead centre of your palate, you feel that little circle there where you get that kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing, and then around the very edge of that, you get a kind of biscuity type note, a McVitie's digestive biscuity type character. So what I would say is the middle third of your palate on this one, the malty side of this beer, isn't anything unexpected. It's just quite nice, but the way the breadiness and particularly the wheaty side of this beer is, I think that's maybe what makes this one a bit unique from my point of reference, if you like. So yeah, but like I say, I've had a few that you can taste that it's North American wheat in this one because of the kind of smoothness and almost like fluffiness of it. So yeah, little things like that are always interesting to take note of. But yeah, let's have a look then. So back third of your palate, let's move there. And as I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on your palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. And the back third and middle third of your palate will show similar flavours, but just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. the the backbone of this the backbone of the beer of the border region, sorry, brain is not working, border region between middle and back third of your palate. You get the kind of white bready base, you get a bit of the brown bread in there, the white bread in the middle, then the more dense wheaty white bread and bitiness on top. The base of that back third of your palate is again the bread crusty character, which is a wee bit drier. You've got the cracker above that, the brown bready layers there, which is a little bit lighter, taller, drier, and more airy. The same can be said of the white bready layer that sits above it, and then you get the denser and more bitey, kind of wheaty character coming out of this one too, which I think is really nice. So a more dense, bitey, wheaty character there. Then above everything else, you've got the yeasty side of things. So yeah, let's have a wee look at that. Let's look at the yeasty side of this beer. So the yeasty side of this beer, at its core, it seems like it's a slightly more dense and sweet brown bready character, and as you move out from that, it's a more dense and slightly doughy, like white bready character that you get. And around the very edge of it, it's more of a it's definitely got more of a it's absolutely got more of a kind of brown bready. More of a kind of brown bready bread crust, and definitely the back third of your palate you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just the flavours kind of condense down and squash together, or compressed down and squash together that wee bit more. So the malty yeasty side of this beer I think is really, really nicely done. Let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. So back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. Then as you move further forward, it kind of spreads a wee bit. There's a wee touch of woodiness, but then as soon as you come much more further forward than that, you get a lovely oily kind of floral aromaticity coming out of this one. And round the front curve of the tongue, it's a bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. So the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is really, really quite nice. I love the kind of oily green component that this beer has. Pretty sure there's cryo in this, to be honest. But let's go to the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate. You get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, the brown bread underneath, the kind of barley malt white bread in the middle, then the more dense wheaty white bread on top. Base of the front third of your palate, bread crust, a little bit of woody character in there, brown bread, white bread, smoother kind of wheaty notes, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that. But the fruity side of this one is lovely. I do love a Citra hop single hop Citra, I should say. My brain really isn't working with English these days, it's terrible. But Citra, really nicely done in this one. So at the back, and that oily bubble at the back of that, on top you start to get the little bit of the sharper peach. Underneath that you get the big juicy mango, which lingers there into the aftertaste. As you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, you have a little bit more of it's almost like a kind of dried apricot underneath, and then on top of that there's a wee bit of a more kind of pineapple-y type character. But as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, you have a little bit more of a kind of lemon. There's a bit of it's almost like limey underneath, but there's a wee bit of a lemony intensity to it as well. And then of course everything starts connecting up with the grassy esters on the front tip of your tongue. So fruity side of this one is really nice and typical of what you'd expect from Citra. But as I say, I do really like how this goes together. Let's round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, kind of top end to mid-bodied, bottom end to full-bodied, sorry. Carbonation is very, very smooth in this one. It's really nice and kind of, it's really nice and creamy, this one almost. I really like the kind of creaminess that this beer has. So Yeah, the sort of the creamy nature of this beer, I think, is what really kind of makes it stand out almost. This is one of the creamiest and sort of silkiest New Englands I've had in a wee while. But yeah, the malt base, a bit drier underneath, smoother in the middle, and kind of slightly creamy and slightly sweet on top, I would say. Your IBU count on this one, I think this is maybe about 40. It does have a slight lingering bitterness to it. I don't think it's only 30. I think 40 seems a bit more. 40 IBU seems a bit more appropriate for this one. And yeah, the fruity side of this one, a little bit of kind of citrusy pungency at the back of that front 3D palate, but very soft and kind of juicy into the aftertaste. But yeah, the citrusy side of this one from the lemon and lime lingers there as well. But all in all, a very, very nice New England IPA, this one, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. It makes me quite curious to try some of the other beers from these guys. I'd be curious to see their take on a West Coast IPA and an Imperial Stout as well, but we've got one of those to have a little look at in a few videos time, which I'm very much looking forward to. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This has been really interesting to try. So this was the Terra Citra, a 9.4% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Drowned Lands Brewery in Warwick, Hudson Valley, New York State in the northeastern US. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Drowned Lands Brewery as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, check out my social media, check out Drowned Lands social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very soon. Ciao just now.